The article discusses the challenges and disappointments with NCIS Origins, particularly regarding its portrayal of Leroy Jethro Gibbs' early years. While the show initially seemed promising, especially with the idea of exploring Gibbs' past in the NIS under Mike Franks, it falls short by failing to live up to the iconic presence Mark Harmon brought to the character. The casting of Austin Stoll as young Gibbs, while competent, doesn't fully capture the essence of the original character, unlike Kyle Schmidt's portrayal of young Mike Franks, which has been widely praised. Episode 11, Flight of Icarus, shifts focus to Franks, revealing more about his backstory and leaving viewers wanting more. The article suggests that the show could benefit from delving deeper into Frank's history, which remains largely unexplored in NCIS, offering more potential for enriching the NCIS universe. NCIS Origins has confirmed my worst fears about Mark Harmon's Gibbs prequel. As NCIS Origins returns from its winter break, its first case for 2025 has confirmed my worst fears about Mark Harmon's prequel about Leroy Jethro Gibbs. Like the majority of people who enjoyed the long-running flagship series on CBS, Gibbs was my favorite during the character's run in the series. Admittedly, even after Harmon left in NCIS Season 19 and Gary Cole has done a tremendous job taking over as new MCRT leader, Alden Parker, I still find myself missing the show's original poster character. NCIS Origins is supposed to solve that, but unfortunately, it hasn't. The NCIS franchise has been launching spin-offs for more than a decade, but Harmon's latest endeavor marks a first. NCIS Origins expands the universe by looking back on its history, as it tackles Gibbs' early years in NIS as part of Mike Franks' ragtag team in Camp Pendleton. The premise sounded promising, although I had my reservations about the show not having any choice but to recast the role. Austin Stoll does a good job, but Harmon will always be synonymous with the role. That said, a different casting choice in the show makes this issue worse. NCIS Origins Episode 11 highlights how great Kyle Schmidt is as young Mike Franks. Young Franks steals the spotlight. Thus far, NCIS Origins makes it clear that it is Gibbs' show, with the majority of its storylines focusing on him. That said, I always had a feeling that Kyle Schmidt as young Frank would steal the show, and after the winter break, NCIS Origins Episode 11 has proven that. Titled Flight of Icarus, the outing focuses on the NIS leader as he deals with his ragged boots, in tandem with flashbacks about where they and he came from. Noticeably, it barely features Gibbs, but somehow, Flight of Icarus is one of NCIS Origins' strongest offerings in its run. Granted, the episode is intentionally built around him, but it has always been easier to sell that Schmidt's version of Franks eventually becomes Muse Watson's iteration in NCIS. From the moment I covered the very first NCIS Origins set photo that featured the character, he immediately stood out, not just because he looked so much like his original counterpart, but also because he exuded Frank's overall vibe. We've seen this throughout the prequel's run thus far, but it is crystallized when it's front and center in NCIS Origins Episode 11. Why Mike Franks is more interesting than Gibbs in NCIS Origins. Franks remains an enigma. This is not to say that Stoll isn't doing a good job as young Gibbs. On the contrary, I actually appreciate him nailing some of Harmon's facial expressions. However, this version of Gibbs is so different from what we are used to in the Mothership that it takes me a while to be convinced that they are the same character. Meanwhile, one look at Schmidt and I can almost see Watson's Franks as well. This isn't Stoll or the writing in the show's fault, however. Instead, it's just a pre-baked problem that CBS needs to navigate while tackling Gibbs' past. NCIS Origins Episode 11 is the first time we actually see Frank's backstory, and it left me wanting more. Because NCIS has already tackled the biggest moments in Gibbs' life at this point, it feels like NCIS Origins isn't really offering anything new. While I like that it can expand on the tragedy, I'm afraid the prequel can't rely on that hook long-term. On the flip side, Franks wasn't as exposed in NCIS as his Proby. Even in his death, he was an enigma, and that offers the spin-off new story avenues that enrich the universe's overall lore. For context, NCIS Origins Episode 11 is the first time we actually see Frank's backstory, and it left me wanting more. NCIS Origins needs to take advantage of Mike's appeal moving forward. Maybe Muse Watson can appear too? NCIS Origins Episode 11 is actually the second outing in the show that explores a character besides Gibbs. Earlier in the year, we saw more of Randy Randolph's personal as he navigates being a new father and the demands of his job. CBS was able to connect his episode, however, to the Gibbs family tragedy by revealing his secret connection to Kelly and Shannon's murder. Frank's outing, on the other hand, is purely about him. Moving forward, I am interested in seeing more of that side of him that NCIS never tackled. Whether that going back to his past and revealing more details about his life before joining the agency or his relationship with Tish, there is so much to explore about him. Since NCIS Origins doesn't technically have a titular character, perhaps Gibbs and his mentor can share that title, and in the future, Harmon can reunite with Muse Watson in one of their characters' supernatural-like conversations.